Hello, welcome to the Nintendo Bros podcast. This is Pete.
And this is Derek.
And it's been a little while, hasn't it, Derek?
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
It's been a good, at least a month. I mean, it's summertime, we've been busy. Derek, now you're hitched.
I am indeed.
Which is good because I know you've had lots of time to play video games this summer.
I have. I've got a good chunk of gaming in for sure.
It's been a gaming boy summer.
Yes.
I haven't played as much, but I think I'll be deferring to you for most of the variety of games conversation. I've basically stuck to a few games.
Okay.
But yeah, so since we've chatted last time, I know we were talking a lot about Tears of the Kingdom this year, but we had another big Nintendo release come out fairly recently, which is Pikmin 4.
Mm-hmm.
So before we jump into it, what was your expectations coming into Pikmin 4? What was your hype levels before it came? I mean, it came out, about a month ago now. So we've had a month with it. So we're going to review it, but we'll talk about the lead up. But where were you at with the lead up of this game?
Yeah, so Pikmin is probably one of my favorite franchises. I just like the uniqueness of it. I'm a big, real-time strategy player with StarCraft, and games like that. So I'm always excited when a new Pikmin comes out. I'm always a big fan of them. But I'm not necessarily hyped the way I'd be hyped for a new Zelda or a new Mario or even like a new the Diablo 4 game that came out. Like, I don't have that overwhelming oh my god, I can't wait. But it's more like, damn, I know this game's gonna be really good. I'm excited because it's a really fun series and more good Pikmin gameplay that I've experienced the past 3 titles. So I went in excited, but not necessarily frothing at the mouth like I can do for some games. But I expect a kind of a 9 or 8 out of 10 kind of experience going into these games because, again, I like them a lot. I think they're well made. They look great, and they usually are pretty, I don't want to say safe, but they don't try to reinvent the wheel in a way that goes against my tastes, where if you look at certain Nintendo franchises, they'll try to throw a whole bunch of new mechanics at it that I don't like, where Pikmin kind of plays it the same, which is just more of the same is good for me with a game like Pikmin. So yeah, that's kind of my initial walk into Pikmin 4. How about you?
Yeah, I'm similar, and I'm someone who's played all 4 Pikmins, and I had them all when they kind of initially came out. But yeah, I'm kind of the same way where I don't get super hyped for a Pikmin game leading up to the release like I would like a Zelda or a Mario. Mm-hmm. But it's funny with Pikmin 4, it's like I was hyping just them announcing it for probably 8 years. And when they finally announced it, it was like, I was over the moon about it. But then I kind of just went quiet until it came out. And I think having Zelda, having a major Zelda game come out 2 months before kind of made it the wait easier, if that makes any sense.
No, totally.
It's better than I thought it was going to be. Let's put it that way. I by far the best Pikmin game yet, I think.
I think so too. I was curious about your opinion because, we'll get into it, I'm sure, more heavily. When we talked about speculation, you often went back to that whole idea of this open world Pikmin, and now we know that it's not really that. I just was curious if you were let down or you're more of a this. I'm just curious of how you've kind of thought based on your expectations versus what it actually was.
Well, yeah, originally, especially based on the initial trailers where we saw the new camera perspective and the world seemed bigger and grander, I was speculating that it was going to be one big seamless world. And I still think one day that's maybe the path they'll take. Mm-hmm. But it didn't do that. But it did a lot of things I didn't expect, actually. Just having that kind of central hub area where you rescue new aliens. What do they call? What kind of species are they? I don't know. Where you basically rescue other companions. And then they all have challenges, or they all have different. They all kind of offer something, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then in past Pikmins, they'd have separate modes, right? They'd have challenge mode and multiplayer mode. And I really like how they've kind of worked it all into this singular campaign.
Yeah, it's all related to the story, or it's built into the world.
Absolutely, yeah. And the other thing I really like about it is I really like the Ohachi dog companion. I think that was a really
Ochi.
smart
Ochi,
Ochi, yeah, Ohachi. I really, I was really surprised by that, by how much I actually like it and how much complexity. I don't want to say complexity, but how much more options it gives you of how to tackle things. Whether or not you want to be more in the action by riding Ohachi, Ochi,
Ochi.
Ochi, or if you want to like separate him and use him as another commander. I really really like how they included that, and also the environments are really big. So it kind of still has that open world feeling in each level, because the worlds are so big, and I really like the new camera perspective. It's much more polished than I thought, and I guess it just feels like this big package that's really well put together. And another thing is the caves are back from number 2, which initially kind of worried me, but they're not randomized this time. So the caves I'm really enjoying, and it just adds a lot of variety and adds some of the challenge to the game.
Yeah, I know in Pikmin 2 the caves were procedurally generated, so there's a bit of a randomness to it, though some of the elements were on certain floors and whatnot. But this one is, every floor is handmade specifically. It's always the same. So they had a little bit more time to refine what they wanted in that floor and how it kind of worked mechanically. I don't think you've beaten the whole game, so you'll get to some parts of the game that are like, I think the best is yet to come for you. I don't know how much you played the past couple days.
I'm about 50%, I think.
Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff near the end. Just a few things that you were meant to just talk about. So, the open world coming later for Pikmin, I completely agree. I think when you go to the levels, how you can move the base and it instantly swaps, and they kind of like played with that mechanic. I think that will be kind of the way going forward to make an open world Pikmin game, right? Where you just move the base, and now you're in a totally different kind of area, and you're just doing stuff with that base in that area, and you can instantly go somewhere else and move it. I think that'd be a really cool mechanic, and it's funny. Again, I don't know if you've gotten to these parts, but there's somewhere moving the base is part of the puzzle of the cave floor, where you have to like do it in a certain speed. Like it's like a Dandori battle, like right where you do it in a certain speed, but you can drop the thing over here and collect stuff, and then you run back and drop it where the other ones are, and like it gets some pretty cool stuff going on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I agree. The world, the areas feel big, especially some of the later ones. The only downside I really think, and I wouldn't say it necessarily is even a downside, is it didn't feel like there's a lot of new enemies. So a lot of the enemies felt very similar to or repeats from the old games. Not that that's a bad thing. There were a couple new ones, but still, I would like to see a bit more variety and kind of even different areas. Like I found besides for the inside area, a lot of them were kind of the outside foresty places. It would have been nice to see a few more kind of biomes.
Yep.
But I do totally agree with you.
It does have the inside the home area, which I thought was
that's
really
what I
cool.
said. The inside the home, yeah, exactly. But it would have been nice to see more of like a snow place, especially now that we got Ice Pikmin. A snow place would be really cool, or like a sand place or volcano. There's just some possibilities. Like I thought there would be a whole level that was like in a sandbox, and I know we have that kind of the third level, which is like the beachy with the tides. But still, I think they could have gone a bit more further with the worlds. I will agree with you though on Ochi. I know some people didn't love Ochi. I think it's an amazing addition. As an RTS fan, again, one of the things that really drives RTS and makes it really interesting and keeps it going is asymmetrical options. So you have Olimar that can do, or not Olimar, but you have your captain that can do certain things, and there's overlap with how they use the Pikmins, and then there's things that Ochi can do, and they can't do the same thing. So there's times where I would send Ochi on his own to do something, and he would get there, and all of a sudden I realized that he couldn't do what he needed to do because I didn't bring enough Pikmin. Or there's times I'd bring the captain somewhere, and I realized, I have to break these pots, and I got either you have to use Ochi or use an explosive. So it gave a lot of different options of how you kind of could do it. And especially, again, later in the game, you get to a little bit more sections that are a little bit more time pressing. Like at the beginning of the game, it's kind of like you can take it as slow as you want, but there are things later in the game where you're really kind of pushing quick. it really makes you think about like, oh, either character could go to this spot, and if I send the captain there, he could do this spot over here. But if I send Ochi there, he could do this thing over here. So it's kind of like, how do you navigate which one to send because they are different. So I really liked Ochi. I hope Ochi kind of becomes a mainstay. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, it almost because in Pikmin, Pikmin 1 you control just Olimar. In Pikmin 2 you have 2 captains. In Pikmin 3 you have 3 captains, and now you it almost, to me, means almost like, what's the point of 3 captains when you have Ochi? And I agree that, like, the different options, like, Ochi can't climb the walls. If you build can't climb up the walls. Ochi can't go through like thin platforms, but Ochi can jump. I really like how it adds to the gameplay, but it still has some of that asymmetrical, you can send commands to him gameplay from the earlier Pikmins as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot.
But I'll agree. Like, so far, the game is, the only complaint I might have is it's fairly easy. I'm just around that halfway point, so it's just starting to ramp up in some of the difficulty. Like, I don't even have all the Pikmin yet.
Oh yeah, you have so much to go.
Yeah, I figure so. I don't want to comment too much, but I mean, right now I'm really enjoying it, and in a way, like, you mentioned that there's not a lot of new enemies. It does feel kind of like they took Pikmin 1, 2, and 3 and it's like made the greatest hits version of those 3 with a lot of polish. Yeah. Rather than, they didn't reinvent too much. It's very much a refinement of the formula. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think if they do make a Pikmin 5, which I think they eventually will, they will have to now kind of do some really new ideas.
Push the boundaries of their ideas. I totally agree with that exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I do agree that so far, at least, the bosses don't seem as grand as previous Pikmins. Like, I remember Pikmin 1 and especially Pikmin 3, the bosses were just kind of awesome set pieces almost. And I actually don't really have any memory of any major boss yet so far in Pikmin 4.
I would say I don't want to spoil it. I would just say there's no special kind of mind-blowing boss except for one.
Okay. And then the other complaint I do have about Pikmin 4 is that I don't know if I love that you can only bring 3 Pikmin types at a time. Agreed. I just don't know what that limitation, why that needs to be there. And I know in caves you can have more than 3 types if you find them in the cave. So I'm just a little bit like, okay, well, what's the point of that? And I'm still not sure if they're going to allow you to have more Pikmin later or what other unlockables there'll be. But yeah, I don't quite understand that limitation. I don't even know if it's like just based on the Switch hardware, trying to do too much.
Yeah, but I mean, it exists and it's still capped at 100 Pikmin. So I agree. That was kind of one downside. And I found that, the one thing I wish you could have at least turned off and on at the beginning is the Pikmin suggestions. Because part of the game is it's a lot more fun when you bring out your Pikmin and you get to a place and you're like, oh, I didn't bring any blue Pikmin with me, or didn't bring enough blue Pikmin, and then you go somewhere else with your yellow and red and solve other things. Then you just remember to go back with blue. But in this one, it's kind of like, oh, I need to bring blue, yellow, and ice, and you just take them all out in 30, 30, 30, and then basically everything you'll come across will be solved by those colors.
Yeah.
So I wish it was a bit more like, oh, they didn't give you that guide of which colors to use, or you could have used all the colors. Or if the suggestion said there was more than 3. Like, every level only has three types of Pikmin that are really used.
Yeah, and, I'm finding that every time I go to the Onion to pull out Pikmin, I'm just doing the auto selection.
That's what I do, yeah.
So, I mean, granted, I do agree. I just think that the game was not really designed around you making those choices. So it's just a different sensibility. But I agree, there's something satisfying about not knowing what Pikmin you need. And then you're able to pull, let's say you pull 10 of each. And then you get somewhere and you're like, oh, I need more red. Let me remember that for the next day. And then you're managing your time where you send Oachi back to pull out more red Pikmin, and that could have been worked into the strategy, but it just seems like it's not really part of the sensibility of this game.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I don't necessarily need thousands of Pikmin to die. I'm sure I hope they bring a hard mode where I would lose thousands, but like I had more than 100 of every color at basically all points of the game. So it's never like, oh, I need more red and have to actually like go collect more red. I always had like 300 red, so I could just pull them out. There wasn't a lot of the mechanic of, when I think of Pikmin 1, I know your numbers can get higher, get high later in the game, but Pikmin 1 is a bit more of a, you actually had to get more Pikmin for some moments, right? You're like, oh damn, I'm low on Pikmins. I actually have to like harvest more.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the fact that in Pikmin 1, you're like really, really learning the whole mechanic of the game. So, I remember the first time you run across like the darker Bulborbs, and they're much harder, and they just like demolish your Pikmin. Like some of those, finding out having some of those experiences the first time are exciting, and I'm not so sure that it's just because I played Pikmin 1 to 3 that I'm like such a veteran of the series that it's so easy. You know what I mean?
It's a bit of everything. Like there's some quality of life features that make the game a lot easier. Even Ochi alone, right, with his stun charge. Like there's a lot of
and I've already fully upgraded it. So,
but I will say that the part of the game outside of the 3 Pikmin choices in the overworld or whatever, the thing that I think really shines as far as the Pikmin management goes is the Dandori challenges. Not really I don't love the battles, but the Dandori challenges and some of the other challenges you'll find later, where you don't start with any Pikmin. You start with 10 red ones, and it says, oh, you got to collect all the treasures in the time limit or whatever it is, but you also want to get more Pikmin. So there's that kind of trade of, am I going for more Pikmin to make myself more efficient, or am I trying to get the treasures faster to like get the best time? So totally. I like the ones where like you have to do both those in that 6-minute time span, as opposed to like, oh, I'll just collect all the Pikmin stuff and then do all the treasures.
Yeah, it's like when you run across a pile of 30 gems to collect. Do you just send one Pikmin there and have them working on it the whole day, or do you send 30 and get it done right away? And like, how much multitasking do you do?
Yeah, like for example, some of the later challenges are very hard, and I went through them and platinumed every single of those hard challenges, and like they're really fun to platinum because it's like, oh, I throw 3 purple Pikmin here because I know they can carry the heavy things, run around here, drop this thing, have 5 guys pick up this thing, charge through with Ochi on the other side to open this, 3 poison things, like, and then you're running back and like whistling to grab more Pikmin as you go, and then it's a lot more. The later challenges are really good. I really hope you try to really take them and play them and do the best you can on them. Cause
I'm glad they have that like they up the challenge a little bit later, because I've been platinuming every single Dandori challenge as well so far, and I've redone a few to platinum them.
Yeah, the later ones will not be easy platinums.
I even like the night mode. I've seen some complaints online for its simplicity, but it's like, to me, it's like a palate cleanser. It gets a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't love it, but it really is like a 5-minute thing. You can just do 5 minutes and then do something else.
Yeah. I think I guess my wonder is like Pikmin, in a way, when I play it, I guess it's almost like a relaxing game. Like I'm like at peace playing it. Mm-hmm. I don't feel very stressed, and I do wonder if like there even is a way to make it hard going forward, because essentially you're just choosing the right Pikmin for the right thing, for a lot of the battling. And I don't wonder, like, if they're gonna make it harder. I think the main way to expand this series to make it harder is they have to go to that big open world where you get to a point where let's say you find
you're the wrong spot and
like you find an area and you're like, okay, do I have enough Pikmin to take on all these enemies over here, or should I like not go there yet? And that decision making and figuring out where the hard areas, or like, let's say you're walking down a certain area and you fall through the floor, and all of a sudden you weren't prepared for how many enemies are in this cave area, Or
you're in an area where ice Pikmin, let's say, would be the best, but you haven't even found ice Pikmin because they're the opposite end of the world, like they.
Yeah, or it's like a little bit of a Metroidvania, right? Like you get the ice Pikmin over here, and like, oh, now I know what to do at that other area on the other side of the map.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's some cool ideas that could be possible in open world. But yeah. I will say, again, keep playing, because there are things that are challenging, but then there's things that are quite a bit more stressful than relaxing in that game later on. Like there's a couple of modes I don't want to talk about, but because you haven't got to them, that are, like, to me, some of the highlights of the game.
Good. Okay. Well, I like a little stress.
Yeah.
And I have had one cave where I did get depleted of my Pikmin so far, and I think that was like one of my favorite moments. Because
Did you use rewind or what?
I haven't used rewind once.
So when you just went back to the top?
I just went back to the top, and I figured, okay, I'll finish that cave later on. I don't really want to use rewind. I don't really want to get into that. I'm not too interested. I guess the other thing I was going to ask, and I've seen some complaints online about this, is Pikmin 3, especially on Switch, offered co-op through the main campaign. And I know we speculated about this, about Pikmin 4. I think we both speculated that it wasn't going to happen based on, like, the new camera perspective. And it really seems like they focused on making this a very solid single-player game. I don't think that the Switch could handle, like, a split-screen version of this game based on what they're doing graphically. But I think future Pikmins, I wouldn't mind going back to a multiplayer focus.
I wouldn't mind if I would be shocked. I mean, not shocked. I have a feeling that when the Switch 2 comes out, they might make a Pikmin 4 Deluxe, and there will be co-op in it with co-op missions, but also co-op campaign where one person plays Ochi and one person plays. I don't know. I'm just saying. It definitely seems like I think the hardest piece of the problem is the Switch doing split screen. I agree, but mechanically, I think the game actually could easily work for co-op. So yeah,
absolutely. Mechanically, you're right.
And I think co-op missions were such a highlight of Pikmin 3 that I'd like to see co-op missions come back, where you have to work together to really get everything done. Mm-hmm. But I do like Dandori battles, like the actual competitive one. I didn't love it, but it was a nice change, I guess. But yeah, I would like to see co-op come back.
Yeah, and I gotta say, just playing the main campaign in co-op in Pikmin 3 was a delight. And it's really nice. Like, if someone wants to get into Pikmin, like, they really have all the options. I mean, they've got the 1 and 2 classics now. They can do the co-op campaign on 3. Or they can go to this new kind of meaty single-player, bigger Pikmin game with 4. Like, they've got the best of all worlds here.
Yeah, agreed.
No better time to be a Pikmin fan.
Yeah, so it's funny. So now that I was going to get 1 and 2, and I actually don't have 3 on the Switch. But now that I played 4, and I was going to get all of them now that Pikmin 1 and 2 were announced. But after playing 4, I'm like, man, to me, it's such a better game than the other 3. Not that the other 3 aren't amazing, but I feel like I've got my share of Pikmin for a long time, and I don't really have the drive to go back and play the other ones anymore. So I think I'm going to pass on getting the other 3.
Yeah, I mean, I bought Pikmin 3 Deluxe when it came out in 2020 and beat it then. But yeah, I just don't really have the time to go and replay a bunch of, like, there's just so many games. Who's got the time, right? Yeah. But I wouldn't mind going back and playing Pikmin 1 at some point, because that's a pretty quick game, and I remember that being fairly challenging and mostly like a nostalgia retread. 2 I'm not as fond of, just because of the randomly generated caves, procedurally generated. But so far with Pikmin 4, the sales have been really good. I mean, we've seen in Japan that the sales are
amazing,
exceptionally high. I mean, it's going to outsell Final Fantasy 16 over there, or it already has. And in North America, at least on the eShop channels, it's always been at number 1. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Pikmin 4 sells well over 5 million copies. It's the perfect palate cleanser and companion game to Tears of the Kingdom.
Totally.
Like, I've been playing a lot of games these past few days, and it's just like, to be able to jump between Zelda and Pikmin 4 is like, what perfect companion games. And both games that are just like I don't want to say time consuming in a negative way, but like, there's a lot to do in them, so you can really sink into them.
But the way you do them is so different. Where Zelda, it's like you could explore so much for hours and feel like you've done nothing. Where Pikmin, even though there's a lot to do, it finds like I find each thing is like kind of a bite-sized chunk. Where it's like, oh, I can do one day and get it done, or oh, I can do this one Dandori battle, or I can do this one cave, and it feels like you've done something, and you might be compelled to play another one. But for Zelda, it's the kind of opposite, where it's like, oh, I can go do absolutely everything anywhere. It's endless. Like, it's a bit. Like, I know what you're saying. They kind of work well together, even though there's a lot to do for both. It's like, after Zelda, it's like, if I played, I don't know, 5 hours, I might be like, man, like, I feel like there's so much to do in Zelda. I'm kind of burnt out right now. I go and play Pikmin for like even 30 minutes, and it's like, oh man, like that was really fun. I feel like I accomplished something in this game.
Yeah, there's definitely like a catharsis to just like collecting more and more and more and making more and more Pikmin. Like it's just like you're like it's like it feels good to collect in Pikmin 4.
Yeah.
Where it's funny with Tears of the Kingdom, which I absolutely love, and I've been playing tons of it. It's funny. There's times where I'm like, okay, it's like, it's 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I've got a nice evening to play Zelda. Like, let's do this. I feel like I start to play. I run to like one horse stable, and then I look at the time, and it's like midnight. It's like, where did all the time go? It's like the game Zelda is just a forever game.
I was playing it a couple days ago, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. Get to this one shrine, like because I got indicated. I'm gonna get to this one shrine, do the puzzle, and then I'll have 8 gems or whatever, and I'll go and get my heart pieces." But on the way to getting that one shrine, and it was like 30 seconds away, I found another shrine. I did that one, and then I I could actually go to the sky and do this thing, and then it took me to this other thing, and I was in the depths, and it's like, man, it took me like 90 minutes just to get to the one shrine that was like 100 feet away, because there was all these things that were in the way that I was like, I might as well do this on the way. Zelda feels so jam-packed with things to me. I don't know, like time flies when you play it.
I love it, yeah. And it's like I'll start to do one quest, and on the way to doing it, I'll find another quest, and then I'll find a shrine, and then I'll find a Korok, and then I'll find there's so much to it. I really feel like I might be playing Tears of the Kingdom like forever. Like, yeah, I really, because I've been playing a lot recently, I still don't want to kind of just beat it quickly. Like, I realize that every single region in the game, it still feels like I've only scratched the surface of.
Yeah, I opened my the Hero Traveler thing when I played a couple days ago, and it's like thin lines on a few little spots on the map. I'm like, damn, like there's so much to explore. Like even like the top, like I've done the whole bird, the bird quest in the Wind Kingdom or the Wind Temple. Uh-huh. It's like, and I was like, oh, I explore that whole area, and then I checked the map. It's like, oh, like 95% of all the mountain ranges I haven't even like gone to. It's like, damn, there's probably so many things.
Wild. It's I don't even know how they did it. And it's just full of new surprises constantly. Like every time I play, I'm like, wow, there's that. They included this. There's like a whole, there's a whole quest that is like, hitting me in the feels here. And the dialogue's well written, and I'm just, the action just gets better, and there's always new things to combine. I don't know. It's just the game feels endless.
Yeah, agreed.
And yeah, like I don't know if I don't think I'll ever beat it. But the thing that I like about,
you'll beat the story though, for sure.
I'll beat the main story, but I don't think I'll ever even get all the shrines. Like I did in Breath of the Wild, because there's a staggering amount more in Tears of the Kingdom, it feels like. But it's just like you reach those moments in Tears of the Kingdom where you can really just go to any pocket of the map that you haven't been to, and you're going to find some sort of surprises and adventures. Mm-hmm. And I guess I love the idea that even after I beat the game, and even a year from now, say, I can just if someone's like, oh cool, let's play Zelda. It's not like it used to be with like Ocarina of Time, where it's like, oh no, start a new game, and we're already here. It felt very like you couldn't really just jump in. Where with this one, it's like, no, just play my game. Let's go to this random area on the map and just wander around and find stuff. And it's just got this whole, I don't know, it's such a great adventure game.
Agreed.
I'm really loving it. And also, we have some sales data for Tears of the Kingdom as well. Has already sold 18 million units worldwide.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was crazy. Way higher than anyone could think. And people think that by the end of the year, it could be at 30 million. So it really is a massive game.
Breath of the Wild was what, 33?
I think it's just about 30 now. So people are thinking Tears of the Kingdom might pass it. I don't think it'll pass it this year, but it'll certainly be over 20 million this year, which is an insane achievement. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to Nintendo and gaming, like the Switch has just been awesome this year with Metroid and Pikmin and Tears of the Kingdom. And also, I was going to ask you, is the new Mario Kart DLC tracks came out recently, and not that recently, but we haven't really talked about it. Have you even played them yet, Derek?
I've done a run through of both cups on I think 150, but I was waiting till I'm going on this little Cottage Vacation next week. I think I was bringing my Switch and just going to try to play those Mario Kart 8 levels a bit more in depth next week. But yeah, I played them. I like them all. I think they're good, but I don't have a strong analysis of them right now.
Yeah, I kind of did the same. I did a run through both courses, and I kind of did it I think it was late at night. I wasn't really focusing on it, but yesterday, because I've been gaming a real lot. I probably played Switch for 7 hours yesterday,
Nice.
and in between my Pikmin and Zelda session, I did a little bit of Mario Kart Online, and I just because I wanted to play I wanted to play some of the new tracks, but I wanted to play them online. I didn't want to play them with the CPU. I honestly find playing against the CPU, even on 150, is a little bit boring because I just come in first always. So I enjoy online a lot more, but you kind of have to wait until those courses come up if you want to try them. So I did a few rounds online, and some of the courses came up, but I really like that new course that's in the bathroom.
A squeaky whatever.
Yeah, I actually did a just an offline race there, and I kind of went through slowly, and it's just jam packed full of details and cool shortcuts, and you go through a sink drain, and it's just it's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next the final batch of Mario Kart tracks, which should be out I think later this year.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they said that by February 2024 is when they'll all due, but I'm sure it'll be a holiday November kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm really hoping we get that Diddy Kong and Diddy Kong Racing themed level. I think there could be something really cool there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
They're not going to do something. Every single one of these DLC expansions for Mario Kart is brought in a little bit more, whether it's brand new courses, new characters, or racers. So I think the last one they're going to give us something a little special as the final cap off to this series or this mega game.
That'd be cool. Or if they were hey, here's 7 levels. The 8th level is actually one that will also be starring in Mario Kart 10 coming next year when the Switch 2 launches.
They're just going to skip Mario Kart 9, yeah.
Well, people call Tour 9, so.
I think the next Mario Kart, they won't even have a number. That's what I think. They'll just call it Mario Kart something. Triple dash. But it really, it did occur to me, and I think we've talked about this before when I was playing Mario Kart Online the other day. And, I think something happened where I got a golden mushroom and 3 mushrooms on one of the city levels, and I was blowing through it. And it felt so unique. I'm wow, getting this combination of weapons on this stage at this area, it feels like kind of a new randomized thing. And I'm wow, this gameplay is so tight in this game that you really can have such a depth of different experiences in Mario Kart 8 depending on the weapons and these new stages. It doesn't get old in ways that other games do. And it really hit me. I'm this really is one of the best games of all time.
Oh,
and it didn't really occur to people when it first came out, I don't think. But it's just the absolute staying power of this game, and the expansions adding just more, just making it play forever. I really could play Mario Kart 8 probably forever, and it's gonna be one of those games where I think 40 years from now, if we're still alive, we'll still remember Mario Kart 8 as the big one.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it's just it's easily one of the best games of all time, for sure.
Yeah.
But let's move on to because Switch has been great, but there's also been a lot of Switch 2 rumors that have been dropping recently, and they seem credible because they're being backed up by quite a few sources, saying that the Switch 2 development kit is now being sent to Nintendo's partners, planning for a 2024 release.
And I think there's some Chinese factories that have said they started manufacturing a new video game console to release in 2024.
Yeah, and I guess the rumor that I've seen, just kind of skimming through some of these rumor threads and articles, is that it'll probably be about the same power level as a PS4.
Yeah, I saw that rumor too.
Which is pretty cool. Or it'll probably be have some additional things, just, being so many years later. You might have built-in ray tracing and built-in shaders.
Or SSD.
An SSD, exactly. So that's really exciting. Is there anything with Switch 2 that you're hoping to see? Like, is there any? What are your hopes with Switch 2, Derek?
I mean, I still believe that they're gonna have that kind of Switch format where they can switch both. I think if I was gonna have one desire, it would to have the like the Joy-Con, whatever the side controllers are, just feel a little bit more robust. Like they just feel a little flimsy and small, and I know it has to be mobile, but even like if I think back to the Game Boy Color, it still fit. It just didn't feel as tiny and cramped. So I'm hoping there's a way they can, even if there's an XL version, it just feels a little bit more like I would actually want to play it mobile. Because right now I don't use my Switch mobile at all unless I'm forced to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, really just I think the controllers on the sides. Like I hate when I have friends over and they play the Pro controllers and I'm stuck with the Joy-Cons. Like I just don't like the Joy-Cons. So that's my biggest want. I think.
I actually, I don't know if I told you this, but I bought another set of Joy-Cons, like a third-party set that makes the Joy-Cons more like a grip controller, like them even hold.
Yeah, I've seen you have them, yeah.
And that changes a lot, but unfortunately, like they don't have gyro the same way, like they don't have the HD rumble, so there's features missing from them.
Yeah.
But I agree, something a little bit more robust. I do think that the Switch won't just be a simple power upgrade. I think they're gonna offer something unique with the hardware like they always do. Mm-hmm. And I guess, I mean, this might be a pipe dream, but I really hope that they do something with motion controls again with the Joy-Cons. And if they make them a little, like, yeah, you're right, weightier, maybe a little more ergonomic for our hands. But I'd also, I know on the bottom of the left Joy-Con, there's the IR sensor. I'd really like if they were able to put those back on the top, and they shipped the Switch with a sensor bar of sorts, and they let us do games. IR gaming and have Wii games on the NSO shop. That's what would be awesome for me, because that's something that I really miss with Switch is the IR aiming, which I think was revolutionary and not really capitalized on in the Wii generation.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, there was a few hiccups when you played, but for the most part, it actually worked really well.
Yeah, and things like with Pikmin 4, like I actually miss having the IR aiming, and even Mario Galaxy, playing Mario Galaxy on the Superstars HD release, like it's just not quite the same using the controller for using your cursor that way.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's a lot of options there. The other thing they could do, I was thinking, is and I don't know if they'll go down this path, but they could do something like the PlayStation Move, where rather than release a sensor bar, release like a little tiny camera that goes below your TV that senses each of your Joy-Cons in like a 3D space and almost gives you like a far advanced version of what the Wii remotes could do. Like almost like a Kinect and PS Move in one. I don't know if they'll go down these paths because these things are hard to replicate in future generations, and they're risky, right? When people really just want regular controls.
I don't like. I know Nintendo has a thing about kind of revolutionizing their systems, but like the Switch is one of the best systems of all time. Like it's phenomenal, and if you look at even the trend of a PlayStation, you don't need to go crazy with the features for it to be selling like crazy. Like the Switch just kind of maintains course, and they'll sell like crazy, and then they'll still sell their software like crazy, and they'll get more third parties involved, and like I hope that Nintendo doesn't actually go crazy with those features. I don't mind those features being in as long as they're not like, I don't want to have a Wii controller where it's like I have to use a nunchuck, like, you know what I mean? I want to be able to, like you said, it be compatible with future generations.
Yeah, but I think the one reason I do think they're going to do something innovative is, if you think about Nintendo, their bread and butter isn't just to release a new CPU every 5 years for hardcore gamers. They have 125 million Switches out there, and a very large number of those are with kids, with parents who bought it for their kids, with people who, just want to play Mario Kart. And I just don't know if saying, hey, now you have a little bit better graphics is really going to entice that same 100 million people to buy a new Switch. So I guess what they could do is almost offer it almost like if they offer like a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro, it might still feel like it's in the same family of Switches, where let's say it's fully backwards compatible, that's all smoothened over. The new Switch offers a little bit of graphical upgrades to the current Switch, but let's say the new Switch is really just more or less the same with more power, a bigger an SSD inside, like more storage. But then they still keep selling the old Switch, and they drop the price, and they do new remodels and new colors, and it's like they're still pushing that original Switch. But I just don't know if they're going to need something innovative to say this is why you need a Switch 2 instead of a Switch 1 when you're a 9-year-old who really just likes Mario Kart. I don't know if
you're right. It's a different
power is
demographic.
enough. Yeah. And I just don't know if, hey, like, I don't know if Nintendo's strategy is to say, hey, we want to release like a new 3D Mario game that's like open world and 4K graphics and like mind blowing this and that. Like, I just don't know if that's really what they do,
Yeah.
So I think that there will be some form of innovation in the controller, but need to say I'm excited. I have seen some discussion that they think backwards compatibility might not happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, just based on the chipsets.
I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked though.
Yeah, I'd be pretty shocked too. There's also people speculating that they might have only digital can have backwards compatibility. Like they'll have a new cartridge slot for the new. Like they won't include a Switch cartridge slot in the Switch 2.
I think that would even get. I think that would get even more backlash than no backwards compatibility.
Well, unless they did something where it was like, let's say they did almost like a Microsoft solution where this new Switch comes out and it's in a brand new cartridge. I really don't know if they're going to have the Switch 1.0 cartridge slot in the Switch 2, because it also is to avoid piracy. And what they could do is say, hey, Derek, you bought this Switch Pro or Switch 2. If you want to bring your account over here, and then you can link all the games you have physically to your account, now you have them on your Switch 2 digitally.
Yeah, but then what's to prevent me from borrowing all my friends' games and linking them to my account?
Well, because once you link them to your account, they can't link them to theirs.
But there's that doesn't exist. There's no tracking for those games.
Well, it could be a system where it's like, let's say you have all your physical games and you pop in like Tears of the Kingdom into your Switch, and you say, yeah, I want to I guess immigrate this into my Switch 2. You only get really one time that you can do that. Do you know what I mean? Like if you want to, like, let's say you want to exchange it for let's call it a digital voucher. You can only do it once. So
there's no way that they can't watch the cartridge go to another. There's no ID.
Is there not a serial tracking on the cartridge?
There's no way I if I give it to some. There's never been that thing where if I give it to someone else, they can't be like, "What the hell? It doesn't work anymore." Or no.
Well, I mean, there's the other thought. I did think about that too, where they just say, "Well, good riddance," because like if you want to share your old Switch game with someone and you all want to have Mario Kart 8 on your Switch, we don't really care because you're going to want to play Mario Kart 9.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I don't know. I think more likely than not, they'll just include the cartridge slot. But
I think the most, honestly, which is my least favorite option, the most realistic option is no backwards compatibility, period. And they're going to resell all those games. They're going to resell Tears of the Kingdom as a deluxe version, Pikmin 4 as a deluxe version.
I think that would be I think that'd be a disastrous decision.
Every company does that.
Well, no, because on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, it's not.
True, they're still remakes. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
And we're entering we're in a new era now where digital purchases, especially, and your digital account purchases should carry over. Like we're accustomed to that now with Sony and Microsoft and our phones. Like if I bought an app on my iPhone 8 and then iPhone 9 came out and I had to repurchase the app, or I have to you know what I mean? Like things should integrate forward. Nintendo's also admitted they've committed to a digital future where your account carries forward. Like there is no refresh here, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a disastrous decision if they decided to go that route where they say nothing carries forward. What I wouldn't be surprised of if they say only digital carries forward. They said you wanted to go physical, you keep your physical Switch 1, you know?
I just think that would be met with such backlash.
I mean, yes, but yeah, I guess you're right. But I just think eventually, even with disc-based media in Xbox and PlayStation, eventually we're not gonna have physical-based media eventually. So there's a clock on that, you know.
Yeah, but I think that won't be for the next 10 years.
Yeah, maybe. Like I said, I think it's more likely that they'll just have a cartridge slot for Switch 1.0 in the Switch 2.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, like, more important than having like a really souped up powerful Switch 2 is figuring out how to get Switch 1 completely integrated into Switch 2. Because I also don't want a situation like Wii U where I turn my Switch or my Wii U on and I have to go to load a whole separate sub menu for my Wii games. You know, like I want to open my Switch and see Switch 2 and see all my Switch 1 games on my main menu.
I mean, I don't care. That's like nitpicking. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I'd rather just be able to play them than have them be in the same folder.
True. And you know, at the same time, I will say, like, I'm not going to get rid of my Switch 1. So it's kind of like, oh, it doesn't have backwards compatibility. Keep your Switch 1.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just that factor of like, okay, well, I'm going to go on a road trip and I don't want to bring 2 Switches with me. And I want to bring all these thousands of dollars of games I've purchased. But I think I'm very, very curious where Nintendo's going to go with this, because yeah, like we talked about, just a simple power upgrade or a hardware upgrade, I don't know if that's enough to entice their consumer base. And I also don't know if that's the route Nintendo wants to go and saying, okay, well, now all of our franchise will take longer to make with 4K graphics, I don't know if they want to go down that path necessarily.
Yeah.
So who's to say? I wouldn't be surprised if we have years, and I'm saying like multiple years, like 2024, 2025, where every single release is still on the original Switch as well. Where basically buying a Switch Pro is going to give you maybe it'll give you like the 60 frames per second version of Metroid Prime and the 60 frame per second version of 3D Mario. But both of those games are available on the initial Switch. And you really just buy a Switch Pro because you want a little bit better of a controller, you want a little bit more storage, and you want to get the little bit of a graphical push. But they're not really going to differentiate and saying, this is the new Switch that only plays this new game. Like, you know, some people speculate, no, there's definitely going to be a game that's Switch 2 exclusive to get people to buy it. But I can also see them going the complete same route that Microsoft and Sony have gone and saying, well, no, we're not really going to cut ties with our old console either.
Yeah.
Very curious to see where that lands.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next year.
So anyways, Derek, I don't know if there's too much other news right now in the gaming sphere. There's a lot of other games on other systems. Like, I basically talked about the 3 games I've been playing. I haven't played literally anything else. Like, I haven't even I'm not going to lie, I haven't turned my Xbox on in over a month. Haven't even turned it on.
Yeah, my Xbox hasn't turned on in months. Plural.
Yeah, but the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of the games that you play on PS5, I would only be playing on Xbox.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And there's Exoprimal came out, and Quake 2 came out, and
I guess I did play Exoprimal, so you're right.
And in Diablo. So why don't you talk for a little bit about some of the games that you've been playing outside of the Nintendo sphere?
Yeah, so Pikmin 4, but the 3 that I played that aren't on the Nintendo sphere. The first is Exoprimal. I think we talked about it briefly last podcast, and I haven't really played that much more of it after. But I will say that I've been following the forums of people that have been playing as the new content's been coming out, and people are really enjoying it. Like, I think it's kind of one of those sleeper cult fan games where, you know, it's not going to have a huge following, but the people that follow it actually really, really, really like it. Like, it is a really fun game. I enjoyed my time with it. There were so many other games that I have in my backlog that are like, you know, Game of the Year worthy that I couldn't really keep with it. But, you know, parts of it are more fun than even Diablo 4. So yeah, like Exoprimal, like, it's kind of an interesting game where, you know, the more you play, actually, the more enemies you unlock, the more levels you unlock, the more modes you unlock, the more features you get on your the suits. So it's one of those games that, like, if you play for an hour, it's like, well, that game's okay. But I think if you played for 10 hours, you're like, this game is freaking amazing. So
It looks like I'm actually really excited to play it. It looks like really dumb fun.
It is dumb fun. Like, that's exactly what it is. But you won't get a lot of variety unless you keep playing and unlocking more.
Okay.
Like, there's like raid modes where it's like all 10 players are not on against each other, but like playing against giant bosses and dinosaurs. I haven't experienced that because I didn't get far enough in the story. So I might go back and just play more when I have some downtime. Like, I might make that kind of the game when I spin instead of Diablo 4, because the other game I was playing a bit is Diablo 4, and I'm really soured on the game right now.
I heard there's a problem with the new. They have a new DLC that's like really gone bad for them.
Yeah, so the season 1 came out. I want to say like mid-July, and there wasn't a lot of content to the season. The patch was terrible. It nerfed every character. It nerfed the XP to make the game slower. Everything about the game, like, they like really ruined the game with this patch. And now they're like kind of crawling back and like trying to remedy it. But I think for me, it feels a little bit too late. Like, I came back from, the cottage where I got married, and I was like, oh, I'll boot up Diablo and play a little bit. And after like 20 minutes, I was like, am I even having fun right now? Or is this like really boring? So I think it's kind of, I'm sure that there will be seasons in the future that I will jump on and I'll be super into, or like even in 3 years from now, the game will probably be in a really good state. But this past, maybe 6 weeks or so has been kind of really downhill, floundering, not quite on board with the messages. Like, they're just all over the place, the developers, and what they're kind of doing. And again,
Blizzard just can't get it together, right? Like,
yeah, and Overwatch 2, which I haven't been playing, like, it's getting review bombed. Like, both those games are just not doing well health wise. Like, I'm sure they sold well and whatever, they're making money, but I think the public opinion of them is pretty low.
It's funny, like, Diablo 4 looked really good to me, but I completely skipped it just because about some of these microtransactions, and I knew it would eventually hit Game Pass, and I'm just so not on board until it's on Game Pass.
It's funny, like the more I kind of realized about Blizzard, it's like, even Overwatch 2, but Diablo 4 as well, it's like, if you wait 3 years from now and you get it on Game Pass if it's free, or even buy like a $15 version of it, the game will be 100 times better than the game it is now. Because like,
exactly.
Diablo 3 right now is so many leagues better than it was when it first came out, or the first year or two of when it came out. So it's like, I'm sure that will be the same for Diablo 4, where like 2 or 3 years from now, they'll have all these more end game content. They'll have all these cool new items. They'll have all these cool powers. They'll have a new class maybe. There'll be a lot more there. And a lot of quality of life stuff, like more stash tabs, better organized, like just the flow will be better. And I see that with Overwatch 2 as well. Again, I haven't played that since it first kind of dropped, but they're releasing new heroes. But this thing just came out where, if you have Game Pass, you get all the new heroes. And I'm like, well, the reason I didn't play the game anymore is because you didn't let me play. Like, you couldn't play the new heroes unless you bought the Battle Pass, or you grinded for like 15 hours to unlock them. And I was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. But now you get them all for free if you just have Game Pass. So
it's almost like, with Blizzard especially, it's like you get burned for being an early adopter.
Yeah, it's like, I truly think that they know that so many people are going to buy it as early adopter Blizzard hardcore people, and they'll always do that, and then they can just work on refining it. Like, I really don't think Diablo 4 came out complete. Like, it just the balancing was all over the place. There's not well thought out mechanics. The end game content wasn't there. Like, they could have spent a whole another 2 years and put it out. And like, as people, the biggest complaint that people are giving is, for Diablo 4 especially, all the mistakes that they made in Diablo 3 and they fixed over the 7 years life of Diablo 3, most of them are back at the start of Diablo 4. And they're like,
wow,
why would you not just keep it the way it was in Diablo 3 and fix that? Again, like the stash, like the amount of items you can hold. It's like, everyone complained about it. They fixed it in Diablo 3, and now Diablo 4 is back to the same issue everyone's complaining about. So yeah, that game I put aside. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to put that game away from now. I'm sure I'll go back to it and at least read up on every season and see which ones I might want to jump into.
But it is
Yeah.
weird because Diablo 4 came out with like really good reviews, huge sales, a lot of positivity when it first came out.
So it's a 1 through. I loved it. The first time I played it, I was the barbarian. I got to level 98 of 100. Super into it, really fun. But then when you realize the next season is like the exact same thing, and there wasn't a lot added to the seasonal content, but also they nerfed everything. They made every character weaker, every character slower, every enemy stronger, and you got XP at a slower rate. So when you could have like leveled up, a level every 30 minutes, now it's like leveling up every 2 hours. And it's like, oh my god, like why? Like they made
So you pay for something, right?
It's like exactly. So they made it. They purposely slowed it down so there's more people playing their game for longer periods of time, because the longer you pay for it, the more likely you are to buy the battle pass, the quick pass to get through XP faster. Like there's all these kind of mechanics where it's like, oh man, like this really wasn't. They put things in that weren't fun because they were smart for monetization, and everyone complained about it. So
Maybe I'm alone. We talked about this before, and maybe I'm alone. But like when I play a game, if I see microtransactions or a battle pass or things like that, it actively turns me off of the game. It actively hurts my experience of the game.
Yeah, like I give games like Diablo 4 a pass because every season that comes out with new content is free. So every content all the seasonal content will be free, and they have to have some way to monetize to keep their teams adding more content. So and again, none of the monetized stuff is anything but cosmetic. So it's not like you can get a super powered item by paying with money. All you get is like a cool looking skin for that weapon. So I'm okay with the monetization of Diablo 4. I'm just they because they want to make more money, they've changed the game for everybody so that people play it more. Where it's like I don't know, like I'm really soured on it right now, and but I'm sure I'll come back to it and when it gets improved. But yeah, so I took a break from that, and I decided because it came out recently to pick up Remnant 2. So that's the last game I want to talk about. Remnant 2. I've only played maybe 3 sessions so far because I'm playing it only with a friend. Mm-hmm. We're actually going to play in an hour from now. It's super good. It's like a mix of Dark Souls kind of difficulty and world kind of combat style where it's like, only a few enemies but they can do a lot, and mixed with Outriders kind of third person gun action where you get a skill or two and then your guns. So it's kind of like a gun Dark Souls. I don't really know how else to explain it. And it's really good. Like the combat feels great. The bosses are really interesting. It's a good challenge, and the co-op works really well. Like me and my friend are having a great time playing co-op.
I feel like I'd be more into that because as far as action games go, I'm better at first-person shooters than I am at the kind of Dark Souls melee style combat of.
Yes, it's not a first-person shooter though; it's third-person.
Oh,
but so yeah, it's like Dark Souls, third-person whatever camera, but with guns, and you have a melee weapon. So, but the majority use guns. So it's like you'll have like guys coming at you with giant chainsaws or axes, and you have a shotgun. But
that sounds fun.
It is really fun, and again, the co-op works really, really well. Yeah.
Is it a full price game?
No, it's $50 Canadian.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so there's different worlds, and what's cool about it is you can do the whole world or do the whole game even, and you can reset your like universe. So you keep your XP and your character and whatever and your items, but you can do the whole world again. But the world instance has changed. So some of it's procedurally generated, but even like this, it's like hard to explain. So like there's a final boss of, let's say, the first world, but when you reset it, that might not even be your first world. But that final boss might not be the final boss of that world, where a totally different final boss of that world appears this time. You're doing a different storyline in that world. So, for example,
cool.
like we did a storyline like where we started in the castle of this like fairy king, and then we went to this town, and then we had to go back and like usurp the fairy king and kill him. But I've read and like there's a whole nother storyline of that same world where you start in the town and you go to the underworld and you like fight the depths and you fight this like creepy guy who steals dreams. The same world and the same like some of the same enemies and some of the same town stuff. But the final boss and some of the bosses along the way are completely different items, different areas.
So the worlds and areas are like actually well designed areas. For some reason I thought because it was I thought I heard that the areas were procedurally generated. I thought you just sort of be in like some sort of boxed maze style level. I didn't realize the worlds were
like
actual.
They're a little procedurally generated, but like the areas flow into one another. So like, for example, like I might play I'm gonna make it up, like the streets of Yosh, and your streets of Yosh and my streets of Yosh will look same aesthetically, but I might have a left and right turn, and you might have a straight turn, and then further up a right turn, and then a big area.
Okay.
Like but they still look the same and feel the same and same
Cool.
enemy kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's really fun. We're enjoying it a lot, and again, it's just nice to have a co-op game that works well, and yeah, no complaints.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I was thinking about this yesterday while I was playing Zelda. Like, you play a lot more games than me, and I'm just kind of in this. I'm just like, I just don't know where I can possibly find the time to play more games. And it's not even just a 2023 thing, but it's like, well, it is sort of, because there's so many games this year. But it's just like, I just frankly don't have the time. And I go online and I'm like, how are people like, they've already beat Tears of the Kingdom and they beat Pikmin and they've beaten Diablo and they've beaten all these games. And I'm like, well, am I not gaming hard enough? I feel like I'm already playing hours of video games. I already feel like I could play Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4 like all year and not buy another game.
I've been feeling the same with you, especially when you go on Reset Era. People are like done 100% of the content on every game. So things that have changed for me is like I'm doing less games at 100% for one. Two, I'm in my summer right now, which gives me a good chance to play games. But I've limited my buying and playing, and it's like, I'll try to multitask where it's like I was spinning. I played my entire Diablo campaign was on the spin cycle. So it's like, I was getting some exercise every day while also doing that. So I'm trying to like kill two birds with one stone. But yeah, like even, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago before I was dating my now wife, and I was living on my own, I played a lot more because I could like sit down on a Saturday and I could grind out like 8-10 hours that day if I had nothing else to do. But now it's like, not only do I not have the time for that because I have other things to do, but it's like there's other things I really want to do as well. It's like, it's like I'd like to do stuff around the house, or like, do some changes in my backyard, or
exactly.
just go rock climbing. So it's like my gaming has definitely taken a toll, and I'm even contemplating like, do I need to get the Switch 2 right away? Like I want to experience those things right off the bat. But at the same time, it's like, man, I'm sure the PS5 and even my backlog on PS4, PS5, Switch, and Game Pass games will carry me for another 4 years, that I don't even think that I need to get the Switch 2 or whatever it is right away. So I'm humming and hawing because I can see it where it's like, I really want it because I know there's going to be like a new Mario or Metroid Prime 4, and I really want to experience those day one. But it's like, those games will still be there. And I might as well try to get through all the games that I've already bought and paid for, and the systems that I already own that I have games coming out for, before doing that. So I'm going back and forth on that one. Because
it's less about the money, right? So if a new 3D Mario or new Metroid Prime 4 is the launch game for Switch 2, and I really am eager for that one series in games, I don't mind paying the money for that.
Yeah, I agree. But in my head, it's kind of like, do I need to spend $400, let's say, on the system, and another $100 on the game, and $100 on the controller, and let's say $600 to play one game, when it's like, sure, I'd like to play that later, but it's like, I have other games that I've already bought, and it's like, the time's limited. So if I don't get through the games I want to play that I already own, I shouldn't be buying more games. I don't know, like, I'm not strapped for cash by any means, but I'm a little bit more, now that I bought a house or whatever, and have a little bit more financial expenditures coming my way, I'm a little bit more careful about how many games I'm buying and whether I'm buying them new. And Nintendo's prices never go down. I don't know. Like,
that's more reason to buy it at launch, because
I know that
savings on it.
I agree with that actually, but I just am kind of going back and forth on. I don't have the time to play as many games anymore. Like, do I even want to get more systems to keep that perpetuating of always having no time to play games? It's like, I'm spending all my time playing games when I do have that free time to get through some of those games I want to play, that I'm not playing guitar, for example. Where it's like, I'd really rather just play guitar and have one less system to worry about. So I gotta know, like, I'm thinking of like downsizing the amount of gaming consoles I have to so I can still stay relevant, but not feel like I'm overwhelmed with how many games there are.
Well, yeah, and I guess I'm similar, but I think my approach with something with like Nintendo is I would almost call them like mega games. Like I need to play the new 3D Mario. I need to play the new Metroid. Like there's games that I have to play. What I feel like is more disposable is saying to myself like, well, do I need to buy Diablo 4? Do I need to start playing Exoprimal and put 10 hours in to enjoy it? Do I need to get deep into Vampire Survivor and beat that? Like, how far do I need to go here? And like, do I need to buy Remnant 2? Like, it's these kind of more I'm not kind of mid games, but games that aren't on my top of my list that I need to play. Like, I'm big fan of those series because
Totally.
Games are such a big investment, and I already feel like overwhelmed. Like this year, I plan to get Starfield, which comes out in less than a month. Then I've got 2D Mario RPG, and like that already makes me feel like I can't buy a single other game. Like
I totally agree. And like the big games are the big games that I want to get, and that's probably why I will get the Switch too. Like I really want, and I have some friends that aren't Nintendo guys that are gonna get the next Switch thing, so I'm excited to play with them. But it's like, and again, Mario and Zelda, whatever, no brainer. Starfield, I'm a bit of the opposite of you. Is like I might dabble for a couple of hours, but like I don't want to have another game where I can sink 300 hours into. Like I'm not a 300-hour kind of guy. I'm not an online multiplayer game where it's endless. Like I would never play League of Legends or Apex Legends because like I don't want to have those reoccurring nonstop kind of games. Even like Exoprimal, I would have probably given it a go for a little bit longer and stopped. But there's games like I want to play, like the Jedi Survivor game. If that ever gets fully patched and fixed, I would love to. Dead Island 2 would love to. Even Final Fantasy 16. It's like I agree with the B tier. Like I don't think I'll ever play Immortals of Avium or Atlas Fallen or even Lords of the Fallen. The kind of smaller games that seem kind of good, but whatever. Like I'd like to play Live a Live. I'd like to play. Again, Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy 16 and the Prince of Persia game. Like, there are games, it's like, oh man, the list just keeps, like, there's so many big games. Maybe it's just this year, I don't know. But, like, it just feels like there's so many of these big games coming out. I really hope and kind of expect that maybe besides Nintendo, which is launching a new system, that 2024 and even 2025 will be kind of a slower years because a lot of studios just released their game this year. Like there were a lot of big games this year.
Well, we know at least it'll be slow for Xbox until their first party start delivering in 2027. So
exactly. I just mean like we might get Final Fantasy 7 Remake 2 or whatever, and maybe some Resident Evil kind of game. But I don't think we're gonna get just an enormous amount of like high quality games in the next year or two, just because so many came this year.
There's always good games every year. I think my feeling is that like I appreciate games that are more like Resident Evil 4 Remake and Metroid Prime. I mean, not because they're remakes, just because I can complete them within a certain time frame.
That's feel like I've gotten I look for now.
Yeah, I feel like I got a good bite out of it, and now I feel like we're in this space of gaming where we're in these like kind of forever games. It feels like, and Nintendo doesn't really prescribe to this, but with Tears of the Kingdom they certainly have because the game is so gargantuan.
But at least the Tears of the Kingdom, like no one collects every Korok seed, but you could do the whole game in, let's say, I'm gonna make it up, let's say 150 hours or whatever, and you can complete most of the game there. But other games that like just feel like you could play forever, like literally it just keeps going and going and going, like Final Fantasy 14 or like I said, League of Legends, like those kind of multiplayer games, or Diablo 4 or even Starfield, I think will be way bigger than Tears of the Kingdom. So it's like those games, I've already lost the motivation to play them before they come out. Like I have zero interest in Starfield. As cool, like I think it's so cool. The game looks amazing, and if I had 1,000 hours in like a hyperbolic time chamber where I could spend whatever time dilation, I would play that game. I'd play the hell out of that game. But like when I think about how much time it needs to really get going, and how many other games like are just short stories that are just as fun or if not more fun because it's condensed. Like I'd rather play Dead Island 2 for 15 hours than play Starfield, which might be a significantly better game, for 150. Like I just it doesn't. Those games don't entice me anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And
Even Tears of the Kingdom is a struggle sometimes to be like, it's just because it's Zelda I'm such a fan that keep going back to it and slowly picking away at it. But it's like, if it was any other kind of game that didn't have such a big presence, I wouldn't be going back to it.
Yeah, I mean, we got to pick and choose which big games we can kind of go back to, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that with Starfield, like I might play it and I might play it that first weekend, and in a few weeks later I drop it and like literally never play it again.
That's my thing too. And the other thing I also struggle with is, again, I have a backlog, but also just going back to playing games I want to play again. Like I really like some old Super Nintendo games, and I have an SNES Mini, and I have some on the Switch Online. Like, I just don't have the time to play those again. Like, even though I would love to play Yoshi's Island again, or like even The Last of Us Part 1 and 2. Like, I would love to do a playthrough of both of those again. But it's like, oh, like, do I really have the time to pick up and play the games I've already played when there's so many good games I own that I haven't played, or I'm still playing, or games that are coming in? Like, it's so. I agree. The time is the hardest thing to balance.
Yeah, it's hard to be a well-rounded gamer in the same way you can be like a well-rounded film goer. You know what I mean? Like, because you can really watch like major movies, like every major movie that comes out in a year, easier than you can play even half the major games.
Like, every major movie that comes out in 1 year might total to 60 hours of film.
Yeah, totally.
You could, and then if you think about games, it's like, oh, that's half of Zelda.
Totally. And yeah, it's hard, right? It's basically come to the point where, because the game industry has gotten so advanced and so big, it's like we actively have to look at games that look excellent and great and say, no, I just don't have the time for that. Yeah. Where I think in the past, when games were shorter, it would be like, no, I'm going to play every single excellent game that comes for my system. I
think it's hard, especially for gaming enthusiasts, as we do this kind of transition. Like, I think we're going to move away from, oh, that game's amazing, I'm going to play it, to, oh, there's 10 amazing games. Which one am I interested in playing? Like again, I have my Amazon wish list open right now, and there's 12 games here that I really want, and it's kind of like, I wouldn't buy one until I really want to play that game right now. So it's like, oh, like, even though they're all like 85 plus rated games or whatever, and it's like, but I'm just gonna wait until I play the other 85 plus rated games I own, and then maybe I'll say, I'm in the mood to kill some zombies, I'll get Dead Island 2, and that's when I'll pick it up. It's like, oh, I'm really missing some Star Wars, or I'm feeling Star Wars. That's when I'll get the game, as opposed to when we were enthusiasts for video games maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it's like, oh my god, an 85 plus rated game. It's like, might as well grab that one and give it a go. It's like, now it's like, man, there's so many of them.
Yeah, and they're more expensive too.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised though if we see less. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the next few years in the gaming space we see a bit of a contraction with this types of games we play, where we're going to see more games like Remnant 2, more like kind of roguelites and exoprimals, and less of these gargantuan big open worlds.
I think there'll be space for both. I think if we look at it, kind of already happened with other media, but video games has happened before too, where the indie scene will always be big, right? Because there's cool ideas, people make it, people buy it, there's a great platform for people to use it. And I think AAA blockbusters will also exist, just like in movies. Like, you'll have the Marvel movies, like they'll always keep coming out. I know Marvel's not the best example, but the big blockbusters will keep coming out because they're profitable. But the middle tier games, like I'm again looking at my list, like Midnight Suns, that Marvel Midnight Suns or whatever, that game got an 88 or something on Metacritic, and no one bought it. It bombed. Like, it tanked.
Wasn't that a mobile game?
No, it was like a super popular game.
Oh,
not super popular.
Super popular game that bombed. Oh,
super critically well reviewed, like, console game that didn't sell well. And I just think there's gonna be a lot of these kind of games. It's like kind of like the Marvel fatigue in the movies, where there's big games, high budget, that even if they review well, they're just not going to be popular. And I think that's going to squish companies, and that's going to suffocate them into being like, oh, instead of making Midnight Suns, that company will just be bought by Rockstar so they can have a bigger Grand Theft Auto 7. Like that's the kind of thing I think could happen, where we kind of downsize to the indie scene, creates all the kind of, interesting titles, and we'll get, just juggernaut, like really safe by the books games coming out for, like the blockbuster games. Like Avatar's Frontiers of Pandora or whatever, that Avatar game, is that going to do well or not? I have no idea. But it's like, if it
I think it'll do well.
Yeah. I just mean, even Final Fantasy 16, like, I think it did well, but it, they're looking for not to sell however much they did. Like, they're looking to sell like 10 times what they sold. Like, that's their dream, right? They're trying.
Avatar's a good example, because that's a game that, in my opinion, looks pretty good. But it comes down to that point. Like, come December, this game comes out. Let's say it gets pretty good reviews. It's well received. It looks great. I guess my question for myself would be like, well, can I just maybe watch a review of it, watch a little bit of gameplay online, see what the game is, kind of experience what those big epic vistas and flying around is, and get the gist of it? Can I get the experience from that versus like having to put the 100 hours in it and experience it? Because I'm sure there's people, even with Tears of the Kingdom, who are like, well, I'm not the biggest Zelda fan. I want to see what Nintendo's done. Okay, I'm going to watch some of these videos of people building things. I'm going to watch some of their Easter egg videos. I'm going to see some of the videos of people in the sky jumping down. But like, they're like, now I've gotten what I need out of that game. Do I need to now experience that whole thing for 100 hours? And I guess that's where the question comes for me, right?
Exactly. And that's where I fall back to, like, again, my wish list is open. I look at games like that Prince of Persia game that was shown, that 2D side scroller kind of Metroidvania one. It's like, damn, like, that's a game I probably would pick up, because I know I could beat it in 2 weekends and have a really good time with it. I'm
100% picking that game up, because you're right. That's a 12-hour game.
That's what I mean. It's like, it'll be good from start to finish. Where Avatar is like, oh man, like, even to get through all the tutorials might be a couple hours, and then it's like 45 hours, 60 hours of gameplay and like collecting stuff, and it's like, and that's another 50 hours if you wanted to 100% it.
It's like all the towers, all the Ubisoft towers.
Yeah, it's like I worry that it's like, oh, a Saturday I'll play for 2 hours, then I'll have to go do something around the house, and it's like, oh man, I really didn't do anything fun in like 2 hours. Whereas like Prince of Persia, it's like, oh man, I could be halfway through the game and like feel like I'm kicking ass. So I think the small games are going to be more enticing to people, and there'll be less and less big, giant, blockbuster 40 hours. Like again, you and I are on the same page, where the less hours, but the more fun and dense those hours are, is the selling point. That's why, again, Starfield, it looks like it's dense, looks like there's so much. I don't want to play another game that has a 200-hour tag. Like, it does not. Like, again, I might download Starfield, it's free on Game Pass, and play for 5-6 hours and enjoy it. Play for 2 weekends even and enjoy it. But it's like, will I even experience enough to say I enjoyed it? Like, will I even get into it deep enough to understand the systems when it's 8 hours of a 200-hour game? Like,
but I don't know. The one thing I will say about Bethesda games, because I played a little Skyrim and I played a little of Fallout 3, is that they don't take that long to get into, and then you're pretty much left to your own devices. So it's not like a game where you need to do that 5 or 10 hour intro tutorial. It's kind of like do your first 45 minutes and then like go into the city and kill everybody. Like, do whatever you want, right?
But I worry that it's like, oh, I'll play Starfield and like get my ship after the first 90 minutes, and then go to one planet and then like play that planet for 5 or 6 hours, and then be like, well, I really don't have time for this. And it's like, I didn't finish the first planet of one town, of one planet, of one like mechanic. It's like, oh man, I really didn't do a lot in that game. And it's like, again, I would probably play more if there was more time. So I've moved heavily towards the very streamlined experience games.
What I would love to see gaming kind of shift in the future is, let's say something like a first-person shooter or a third-person shooter, right? Like we all know how to play those games now. Like I don't need to be taught how to crouch in a game and how to play the game every single time again. So what I'd like to see is rather than, let's say something like The Last of Us, rather than a new Last of Us game being this massive 30-hour thing where the first few hours are like introduction and slowly ramping up the gameplay, why can't the game just be 5 hours long, be much more dense in like they really program that 5 hours to be as open, and not open, but as many possibilities, and to have like really tight AI, have a really great story, Like, why does the gaming industry feel the need to offer these longer and longer and longer games? Where I think for me, I'd rather pay a little bit less money and have a shorter game. Like I wouldn't have minded if Last of Us 2 was broken into two separate games. You know,
I agree with that. Like, but I don't think Last of Us to me is the best example because I found it's a good narrative. It kind of carries you along. I enjoyed that game. It's more the games that are just like bloat. Like I don't find Last of Us Part 2 even is bloated. Where there are
it's a little bloated. I feel like they could have shaved it down.
They could have shaved it down. I'm not denying that it could have been shorter, but even 25 hours or 30 hours, or whatever it is nowhere near the Ubisoft juggernauts of like 130-hour Assassin's Creed games. Like those games, there's just no time for them. Even Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, like great game. I'm loving every second of it, and I can't wait to go back to it. But I really hope that we eventually get Zelda games that are more like the top-down Zeldas, or even Ocarina of Time, or Twilight Princess, where it's like this is a kind of a lot more of a you can beat it in 25 hours, 20 hours, and you're done.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I'm thinking about Zelda. Like Breath of the Wild is a big open world game, but I haven't really dove into another big open world game like that until Elden Ring or Tears of the Kingdom, and. I don't wonder. I think with Zelda, we'll probably wait another 5 or 7 years for another big open world game again. But it's like if Zelda Tears of the Kingdom didn't come out this year and Starfield came out on May 12th instead, I probably would have been able to justify all the hours into Starfield as that meaty game. But I don't have time for 2 of those games in a year. I just don't. And I mean, by the time Starfield comes out, I'm still going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom. So
same.
It's really just a battle for time. But that's first world problems, I guess.
Yeah, good discussion.
Yeah. So, anyways, Derek, let's talk just before we wrap up here. What's the next game on the horizon for you?
Like guaranteed buy?
Yeah, like what's the next game you plan to play, dive into?
I mean, Armored Core 6 looks good, but I think I'll wait. Sea of Stars is on Game Pass, so I might give that a go. But I think the next one I'm definitely buying is Mario Wonder in October. I might dabble in Starfield because, again, Game Pass. Or Spider-Man 2. So I think Spider-Man 2 and Mario Wonder come out in the same day. I'm definitely getting Mario. And Spider-Man
I already
2
have it pre-ordered, Mario.
Yeah, me too. And like my wife Sarah's gonna play with me, my wife, so it'll be fun to play with co-op. Because like I might want at that time also a single player game, depending on where I am in my single player games right now. So I might grab Spider-Man 2, but I think I'll just be playing backlog games for the rest of the year. So I think the only purchases for sure are gonna be Mario and Mario RPG, and the rest will just be the games I already own. Really.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm really trying to just finish Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4 before Starfield next month. We'll see how into Starfield I get, but pretty much it's the rest of the year to me is a Starfield, Mario RPG, Mario Wonder year. I can't fathom anything else.
On my spreadsheet, I have games to beat, and I have it by month. So like this month, I'm playing on Remnant 2, and then working through Tears of the Kingdom, and I might do the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and then I want to finish up Octopath Traveler 2, give Starfield a go. And then for October, November, and December, it's literally just Super Mario Wonder and RPG, and then backlog games. So
yeah,
and there's some Game Pass games that are coming out that I really want to try. So
yeah.
Sorry, there's some noise at my window, but yeah.
Jeez. Okay, Derek. Well, I don't know anything else to talk about.
I think that's it.
I guess the next time we chat will probably be after Starfield comes out, and probably our next talk will be about the reviews, about our first impressions for Starfield, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. We didn't even talk about Baldur's Gate 3, but not that
I played it. Do you have it? Do you
No. I just it's a kind of a big game, so.
Yeah, and that whole IGN debacle, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's the highest rated game ever on OpenCritic.
Yeah, did you see that whole thing with IGN, Derek?
No, what happened with it?
So, like, this one developer who's like an indie developer made a tweet basically saying, like, Baldur's Gate 3 should not be the new standard.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And honestly, they had a good point, because not every game can be like we've talked about over the last hour. Not every game can be this giant bloat game, 1,000 people, massive open world, tons of possibilities games. Like, we want smaller games, and that's more or less what they were saying. And then this kind of IGN guy from IGN did this video where it was like a hot take, but he basically takes what they said and then he basically kind of misinterprets it to mean like he's like, yeah, no, we want our games to be polished. We don't want games to be broken like Star Wars or this or that. And everyone's like, well, that's not what they're saying. It was just it's become a very hot topic because of the way this guy
interpreted it. Yeah.
Misrepresents what they were saying, and kind of, and then all of a sudden that developer's getting all this hate, basically be like, oh, we don't want crappy games, and they're like, well, that's not what we're saying at all. But that was just kind of a funny topic.
Yeah.
But anyways, Derek, good chat.
Yeah, that was a good conversation.
And we will talk in a month about Starfield. This is Nintendo Bros. Pete signing out.
This is Derek. See you later.